And we are back for another episode of the Ads and Dunks podcast. As always, exclusively brought to you by the Ausmerican Aces. I'm your host here in freezing cold Melbourne, Adsy, of course, and of course across via Zoom as always. Joshy, my best mate. How you going, mate?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Not as cold up here, but cold enough for the jumper. I'm getting a bit soft now, mate. I'm a Queenslander and it's winter time. It's still 20, 22 degrees and I've got a jumper on. So all going well though, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I feel like if you when you do come to Melbourne, you're going to be extra cold now because we were just saying off air that, you know, the last 4 to 5 episodes I've been pumping the heater, but I've just recently got my my gas bill, and let's be fair to say for the next quarter of the year I will not be pumping the gas because the heater was the bill was ridiculous. But other than that, I'm going really well. It's another huge episode for us. We obviously review each other's games, but it was another big round for you. Obviously, the Q Clash. We've got plenty happening in the NBA. Obviously, I'm not playing, but my boys are flying at the moment. So we've got plenty to talk about. But as always, we'll start with obviously your game on the weekend. It was your first Q Clash that you've been a part of, as I've just touched on. I know last week we spoke about, you know, what the feeling was going to be like and how you were going to obviously perceive it. And I definitely spoke about how it's probably the best both teams have been placed against each other, coming up against each other in a Q Clash. And it definitely looked like that, for the first 3 quarters. And then obviously the last quarter, you guys were able to run away with it quite a bit. So how did you feel more importantly? And what do you think, again, as your own game? I know be humble, but what do you think of your own game?
Yeah, it's a good one to start off with, mate. It was, we talked about last week, the rivalry and stuff. I actually probably learnt that the boys don't really like each other. So it was out on the ground, there was a bit of tongue in cheek and everyone was throwing a bit of lip around, but it was a good one to be a part of. As you touched on, they were obviously very good in the first 3 quarters, and it was a game where we just had to continue to, do the things we were doing, because I felt like it was a bit of an arm wrestle and we probably weren't converting, and then they would go up there and convert. So they play a different brand. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how they go this week against you guys, and up north, I think it is in Darwin. So yeah, they're very contested, obviously led by Rowley and Anderson in there, and even Big Witsy's an incredible ruckman. So they got some players all over the ground that can really take it up to some good teams. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to watching the matchup this week of yours. But it was nice to be able to run away in the end in that last quarter and kick a few goals. I had a shot where I had a set shot 45 metres out, I reckon, on the angle, and I was like, geez, I hope this goes through. And it was touched on the line, but it's pretty funny. It's just everyone knows about it now. It's just everyone's trying to get me a goal, but in the last quarter, I tried to sneak down and take a bite, but couldn't, mate. So it was a bit frustrating from that point of view, but individually, thought it was one of my better games for the year. Obviously not being able to hit the scoreboard, but my pressure and stuff was really good, and look forward to obviously continuing to improve, mate. As always, we have that growth mindset, the both of us, and as we tell our listeners to continue to look to improve in many different ways. So it was a nice weekend. I got to watch a bit of your game, or the Doggies game too. You obviously weren't playing, but it was pretty interesting viewing. How do you see that one? Yeah,
well, obviously I definitely agree. Firstly, with what you were saying with the with the respect to the Suns midfielders and Noah Anderson and Matty Rowell in particular, I think they complement each other quite a bit. And Witsy's contest the ball game is as good as anybody. Definitely look like that combative nature, and then the fact you're able to run away with it. But I just want to touch on this goal again. I just don't know what your teammates are doing. I don't know what your midfielders are doing, whether they're just trying to not give you the footy. I feel like we've got to butter them up a little bit, and maybe maybe we could send them a present on behalf of the Ads and Dunks podcast, and tell them whoever gives you their first goal, gives you your first goal, we'll give them a gift or whatever it may be, because I'm just hanging to check that stat sheet just so I can see in that goals column, Josh Dunkley, whatever disposals, and then 1 goal, 2 goal, whatever it may be.
Don't worry, mate. I've got a few things on the line with a couple of the boys. If they get me the first goal, then I might shout them dinner or something later in the week. But there's a lot of things. It's actually funny you talk about it, because the celebration we've been doing, or we've said that I'm going to do when I kick my first goal. Mm-hmm. Yesterday we had a few kids from a school come into the footy club, and even tonight at an appearance I had to do. down at Maine Junior Football Club. They actually said to give them a shout out. So all the under 13 kids and under 11 kids down at Maine, thanks for tonight. But they're all doing this, mate. They're all doing the Ads and Dunks podcast symbol. So I walked in and they're all like, "Oh, hey Dunks, like, how you going?" And they're all doing the symbol.
Oh, I love that.
So the word's spreading, mate. It's good. It's good.
Maybe when I come back, hopefully, whether it's this week or next week or whenever it is, I can come up with my own celebration, or maybe I should just do the same thing.
Mate, maybe we should both of us, every time we kick a goal. Someone actually asked me tonight, what does Adam do when he kicks a goal? Like, you're obviously going to do this one. What's Adam going to do? So maybe you should do the same, mate.
What do I normally do? You always used to bag me about it. Yeah, always.
You just go
try and get a good photo of the pipes, even though I don't have any. But no, I'm hoping you. I reckon if you kicked the goal this week, I definitely would have felt like you would have been a sneaky chance to win the best on ground medal. I know there was a spread of good performers on the day. Lockie Neal obviously was exceptional and has been exceptional for a large part of the year, but I was, obviously supporting you guys and supporting you, and hoping that kick a goal maybe late or maybe a couple that you might actually sneak across the line and win the best on ground medal. But I think there's a Q clash later on this year for you. Well, they present one every Brizzy Gold Coast game, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe next game this year you can
game.
kick a goal then and sneak one in, because I was kind of hoping you won it.
Nah, thanks, mate. Unfortunately, I didn't, but it was nice to get the win otherwise. But talk about your game, mate. You're obviously on the sidelines still with your hammy. But how'd you see the game down in Ballarat? You obviously didn't go because it was a bit fresh for you.
Yeah, no, I was complaining about the cold here in Melbourne itself. Imagine being in Ballarat. It was, although the boys were saying it wasn't too windy or it wasn't too cold. It was actually pretty good conditions considering. But no, it was. I believe it was definitely our best four-quarter performance we've had all year, and it's quite pleasing that we were able to do it against a really good side in Adelaide, who have been playing some great footy. I feel like Tex was a big out for them, and Riley Thilthorpe, if that's how you pronounce it. They had a couple big outs that weren't playing, and that obviously helped us. But that obviously doesn't matter when the game's playing. So I was very pleased that we were able to play the way we did. I felt like I'm very proud about our midfield group and how we play, and it was evident on the weekend that we were getting beaten quite a bit around clearance. And when we get beaten around clearance, I feel like we definitely put our backs under pressure, and teams can sometimes beat us because because we're not winning around the footy. And I think the way we defended post losing clearance was probably the best I've seen as a group. Our back seven, so back six, and obviously the one off the bench, seven, because people probably listening are like, there's not seven defenders. But anyway, our back seven were unbelievable. They defended extremely well. I've seen Bont talk up Liam Jones, just the impact that he's had on our group, and how good he is for our other defenders and the confidence that he gives them. I just felt like we defended extremely well, and the pressure as a midfield group that we actually put on their opposition mids when they did win the footy, because they are a first class midfield led by Jordan Dawson. Was again first class, and that's led by Bond, who brings that pressure week in, week out. Baz has been unbelievable really since he's been back into the side, because he missed a couple of weeks, and really starting to see his powerful running and the way that he attacks the game and really brings his strength. He has that good balance between the inside and the outside. So watching, as you could imagine, I definitely wanted to be a part of it and want to be out there and playing, but I support as hard as anybody. And it was actually quite nice because all the VFL boys, because we didn't have a VFL game, we all trained on the Saturday and got together and had a nice chicken parma down at the railway and watched the game and obviously watched the boys win. So it was a nice day. It's been a good month of footy for us, and to have played probably our best game all year. It's pleasing going forward because, again, no easy competition, and we obviously now face the Gold Coast who we rate and regard extremely highly. So looking forward to that up in Darwin.
Yeah, I think as I touched on, it's going to be a very good battle. Obviously kept a close eye on the Doggies game up in Ballarat because we've got the Crows this week. So it was very interesting to see how the boys attacked it. And like you touched on, it's an interesting one to actually see the boys, or the Dogs boys, lose that contested ball clearance battle. But to be I think it was down. You were down by a fair bit at half
Quite a
time,
bit,
but
yeah.
to actually then to be in front on the scoreboard was very impressive. So it was a good one to watch and see how you went about it, because I feel like we're gonna try and take a few things out of that game into this weekend for us.
Well, I think that, that should be, I guess, the hallmark of most midfields. I mean, if you're going to get beaten around the ball, which, you're not going to win every week, it's just the reality.
Mm.
If you can put pressure on opposition teams, and in particular Adelaide, as we mentioned, and they've got some quality through there, and maybe force them to dump kick the ball, or maybe force them to overhandball, whatever it may be, it kind of plays into our hands a little bit, and then definitely helps our defenders. So as we just said, to lose clearance, which we don't usually lose that much. We've got a pretty good group in there, and we tend to win clearances most times. To actually lose and lose, be losing by a significant amount in that first half, and then actually be able to force them to, I guess, turn the ball over in dangerous spots and us win it back. It shows credit to the mindset of the boys. While we weren't winning, let's just put pressure on, make sure they don't go inside 50 easy. So, I feel like it's probably the hallmark for most teams and how they probably want to go about it, because, most teams that play the game, in reality, is dictated by how the midfield goes. I mean, that's just how most footy clubs are, and lucky enough, we have an exceptional group in there, and the balance we have at the moment is really good.
I'm sure there's a very good feeling around the footy club at the moment. But touch on yourself individually, mate. 2 weeks into your hammy, how's it looking? Let everyone out there obviously know little things that you're doing, where you're at, things like that.
I'm actually feeling really good. I'm always pushing to play, so I felt like I could have played on the weekend. I mean, whether I could have, maybe not, but I had a really good session on the Saturday, and I felt totally fine, totally normal, no feeling in the area that I actually hurt. So that gives me good peace of mind. But you obviously got to factor in history and age and whatnot, and make sure put into place, I guess, a bulletproof program where you can get back and be better and perform and not go out. So, yeah, it was a really good week for me to really tick off some speed and, join in a couple of drills with the boys. And I feel like, I'm going to put myself in a good position to hopefully play this week, whether it's, as I said earlier, whether it is this week or next week, I'm actually not entirely sure. I have to speak to the medical staff and obviously Bevo tomorrow and talk about, it is a big travel game for us. We're heading up to Darwin, which is, quite unique for us because we haven't played in Darwin, I think, in 10 years, I believe. It's been a long time, and it's obviously quite hot and humid up there, and extra stress on the body. So we'll have those discussions tomorrow, because post Darwin we play, I think, quite a bit in Melbourne, for a large part of the year. So in terms of being ready, I'll be ready to go either way. So you know me, mate, I'm always pushing to play, so I'll be pushing to try and get out there. In terms of what I'm doing, I wouldn't say I'm going above and beyond. I'm just trying to balance out not doing too much in terms of training. And that's always been a hard thing for me because I am an overtrainer. You and I have had some quite funny, heated debates about about this topic. And the worst thing is we connected Apple Watches whenever we met each other, and you could see every time I was doing extra training sessions, and he used to laugh at me. So,
because a session will pop up at 1 a.m. in the morning when you're watching NFL or something.
Yeah. But yeah, the balance of being able to, relax in that aspect and like just let my body heal and get to a position where I can train and I felt like I've done that in the last 2 weeks. I've done exactly what the physios have wanted me to do. I go, I've done extra sauna sessions throughout the week because I thoroughly believe in infrared sauna and the way it helps with blood flow around the body. And not only does it help with healing, but also feel like it helps with good sleep quality and balance. So I've spent quite a bit of time this past couple of weeks in the sauna, and you've got those really nice Normatec recovery boots, which I've had on pretty much every day. So, whether or not they're little 1%ers that have helped me, I'll take it. But, I am feeling really good. So to answer your question on whether I'll be playing, actually, I don't think you asked me, but I know that's probably going to be the next question. I'll probably know more tomorrow post our main session and knowing what we're doing. But hopefully it's this week. Hopefully, but if not, it'll be definitely next week. It's either one this week or next week.
Nah, fingers crossed you're out there this weekend and dominating like you were before you got injured, mate. But let's talk about other things around the AFL world. First one is obviously Damien Hardwick. Like, was that a surprise to you? Because when I saw that, I was blown away.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely it was, because I regard him as one of the, he's, one of the best coaches that I've ever, I guess, come across. I mean, the way that he's helped change, Richmond, and, you got to give credit to the players that they have in Dusty and Cochin and those stars, Jack Rewalt, Alex Rance, Brett Deledio, earlier days when they were all coming through with Damien Hardwick. But, you could just see the respect that he demanded, and the pressure that he was under early days when obviously they weren't having the immediate success that they wanted. And the fact that they actually, the footy club stuck by him, and he was able to win them 3 premierships. Incredible. I've got no doubt, though, that we'll probably see him again. I feel like watching his press conference today, he spoke about how he's just, mentally exhausted and whatnot, which is totally understandable. He also spoke about how he still loves the game and he has a passion for it. And it will not surprise me if we see him coach again. The only thing I was a little bit, I guess, disappointed about was it broke the day before. I seen, there was news outlets that spoke about him potentially retiring. I just feel like, it'd be better if he was able to just kind of do it on his own terms and call the press conference himself and announce it without having the anticipation. I mean, out of respect for the guy who's such a, champion of just this sport, playing and coach, he should have probably been able to do that himself. I mean, I guess journalism, that's how you break stories, and that's how journalists make their money. But it would have been nice if he could have done it himself. Firstly, what do you think about that? And also, obviously, what's your impressions of the legacy that Damien Hardwick's left?
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit torn. I feel like, if you're a journalist and you get some news that potentially this is happening, then you probably do. Personally, I would probably look at what Dim has done and how good he's been over the time. So it probably would be a good opportunity to let him do his thing. But then I also get the other side, because it's like, well, this is my job. I understand that there's things that need to be broken, and obviously that's the job. So you get paid to do that kind of stuff. So to break a story like that obviously gets your name up in lights for sure. So I kind of sit on the fence with that one, unfortunately, mate. But I'm not saying that because we're on a podcast, but I'm more saying that just because I get both sides to the story. But as you touched on, I think Dim has been an incredible figure at the Richmond Footy Club, and I was fortunate enough to spend a bit of time there before I got drafted with their VFL program, and just to see the work that he did, not only with the AFL players, but the VFL players as well. And me as a player that was just playing a few games that year in my draft year, we had a great connection, and I can understand why the boys would be obviously a little bit upset for him leaving, because they all play for him, and obviously over the years they've been playing for him and played very good footy for him. So it's going to be a sad one to see him go, but we wish him all the best. And I do think as well with you, that he'll be back in footy sometime soon. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something already lined up for him next year, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. What about you think back to those Richmond years when, the 17, 18, 19, 20, even towards the end of 16, I believe, they were clearly the benchmark of the competition. I won 3 flags in that time frame. 2018, where obviously the Eagles beat us in the granny, and we beat Richmond in the prelim. They were still, by far away the best home and away team that year, and could argue to say that they were the best team, and they were for the 4 years. What actually made them, from your memories, hard to actually play against when obviously Dimmer was coaching well and truly into his prime?
Yeah, I just would always think about their pressure. Coming into games, you just know that they would just never give up. Like, it'd just be ruthless defense, and the way that they attacked then was just based off their defense. So you'd come into games just expecting that full-on pressure, and I feel like it got in other teams' minds, other players' minds, and you'd fumble, and then it creates something for them. So for me, at their best, they were just their pressure stuff was just incredible and hard to actually get on the other side of. What are your thoughts?
I totally agree with you. I mean, I think from my 10 years my 11th season playing, I think back to teams that, that really, I guess, put me under the most pressure and I guess, forced me to feel a bit iffy when I got the ball. And I think back to those Richmond sides, there was pressure coming in all directions. Another thing that really stood out to me was, their game plan wasn't, switch the ball all the time, go off the line. It was pretty much kick the ball along to a contest and get speed of ball off that with the number of players around the footy. And, you talk about that sounds, sounds pretty easy to stop. Well, it wasn't. Trust me, when you've got, their higher forwards, when Daniel Rioli's playing higher forward and Jason Castagno, then they had Josh Caddy early days, Dustin Mutton, the midfielders in Koch and Dion Prestia. These guys getting around the footy and winning contest the ball, getting the ball going forward with that surge mentality. I mean, it just couldn't stop it. And then, when you would build momentum, or when they would build momentum, it just felt like they're just going to kick a flurry of goals here, playing in front of, 80,000 people at the MCG. That was another intimidating factor about it. And it reminds me a lot of Collingwood, now, and obviously Craig McRae was obviously a part of those teams at Richmond. It's so similar watching Collingwood and seeing how their crowds are and the way Collingwood like to play, and they run in waves and get the ball going forward, and their pressure is, the best in the competition. And that's all thanks to, the way Richmond played and the way Dimmer obviously set them up and, the way he coached. So that's probably what I think most when I think about Richmond.
It's a good one, because I feel like when you're a good side and you're coming up against another good team that, like Richmond, that was so good for a long period of time, it genuinely, it plays in your mind. It plays on your mind. Like you go into the game thinking and expecting, like, geez, they're going to be good. It's kind of like Geelong last year. I feel like they were obviously, I think they won about 17 straight before the grand final. So if you're coming up against them, after 10 wins, then you're like, geez, this is going to be a tough one. And I feel like that's what Richmond were like in their prime.
And yeah, I agree. And those years were obviously, and obviously Dusty's still playing as good as ever, and he's probably the scariest one-on-one player still. But in those years of 17 to 20, he was, in my opinion, I've only ever seen really Chris Judd, and I'm biased towards Chris Judd because he was my idol growing up, and Anthony Koutafidis, but he's as, Dusty is a top 5 player in my opinion of all time. And, him in those years, there was no one better to watch, but coming up against, there was no one more intimidating. And, he was really a Richmond. The way that he played just suited the way that Richmond played and brought out all of his strengths. So I think back to Dustin Martin, how scary good he was. Speaking of Dusty, though, they mentioned, Dimmer mentioned, I think he said Dusty suggested that he goes to Ibiza and has a little bit of a break. What would you recommend if you were recommending Dimmer to go somewhere?
Well, I've only really been to the States properly, and I've done a bit of the UK. So if I was Dimmer, I'd probably send him to the States and say, go and watch some NFL, mate. I'll go to the NFL draft in a few weeks' time or something like that.
Well, go now and watch the NBA Finals.
That'd be sick. Yep.
Yeah, I reckon that'd be something to consider, because the fact that our sport obviously takes up the months of March to September. You never get the opportunity to watch the NBA or the NBA Finals, so that'd be something. But it's funny, we suggested, because we obviously he might not even like NBA or NFL, and we're suggesting go watch American sport.
Well, I was going to say he probably wants to get away from sport in general, so maybe somewhere off the I don't know, America. You're probably going to get more sport over there, so maybe Ibiza is somewhere for him to go. That would be good.
A couple of the pool parties, which would be sick, but. It obviously leads us into one of the games of the round, probably the game of the round in the Dreamtime at the G game. I know you probably wouldn't have been able to see that, but you might have seen highlights afterwards. But it was an unbelievable, incredible game of footy.
Yeah, I saw obviously Jakey Stringer. I saw a couple of interviews post game, and Durham obviously kicked the winner. But I saw something today. It was actually asking about, do you reckon Jakey Stringer in that moment would always potentially 90% of the time have a shot, or would he send the ball?
Yeah. Yep.
And
you played with him. What do you reckon?
No, well, I think it's a great thing to see. Obviously he's a natural talent. And he's very freakish around the goal, so I'd back him in every day of the week to have a shot there. But to see him center the ball in that situation instead of trying to do it himself I think it obviously shows how well he's going and how he's thinking about the team at the moment, which is great for Essendon Footy Club.
Yeah, and as you said, Durham, to mark the ball under pressure and the way that he did, because there was obviously a contested mark with the ball. There was that many revs on the ball, it would have hurt your hands. It was unbelievable. It was something. It's one of those games where, I think back to what being able to play in Anzac Day and the big freeze games for Collingwood. They're one of the games that, Essendon and Richmond, I know, would feel very truly blessed and lucky to actually be a part of, because it seems like, the more that it's gone on and the amount of years it's been around, it's just gotten bigger and bigger. And the amount of, Indigenous AFL players, men and women that come and watch and support, and you see all the champions, and Michael Long was there, and all the greats that have come before us. It makes you want to be a part of it. It gives you a bit of that, I wish I was playing that.
Yeah, it was funny. I was actually chatting to Jake after the game, because we played him obviously last week up here, and he was talking about how good it is to go and play Dreamtime, and obviously Richmond, and we're just touching on Richmond, but they'd won the last, I think it was 13 games between the two sides, so it's obviously a daunting thing for the Bombers crew to go down there and or go across to the G and play them in Dreamtime, but to get over the top of them in the end was incredible, and I'm sure Jakey and all the boys would be pumped with that.
Yeah, they're flying at the moment. One of the really good sides. Speaking of primetime games, obviously the primetime game on Friday, the Port Adelaide Melbourne game. It was another great game to watch considering the conditions. But what about there's an absolute star in the making. I mean, always seen how talented this guy was. I think when we played against him this year, he was definitely the best player on the ground, and you probably gained a little bit more respect considering, we played in a wet weather game against them. But Zach Butters on the weekend, he was playing. It looked like he was playing with a dry ball. There was torrential rain, and he's come away with 41 and kicked 2. But the most impressive thing is the 41 in those kind of conditions wasn't 41 hat kick forwards or whatever you want to call it in those type of footy or those type of conditions. He was just classy, and he looks quick and powerful around the ball, and really complimented Connor Rosie and Ollie Wines and Will Drew and these guys in there. Do you reckon we're seeing another star in the making, or if not already a star, but a superstar in the making?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's been a really good player for a long period of time already, to be honest. Like I've probably just been overshadowed by Rosie and the likes and Boki and all that through the midfield. So it's great to see him obviously playing great football. And I watched that whole game and I was blown away by the way he was using the footy. He was bringing it back into the corridor from the boundary line and just doing things that were obviously keeping Port in the game, but obviously it got him over the line in the end. Sorry. So yeah, he's an incredible player and definitely a star already, I believe.
Mate, if no one's taken Port Adelaide serious before that, I feel like they're definitely going to be doing it now, because they're, they obviously beat you guys and they beat us as well, and we play them in another couple of weeks. They are definitely one of the best sides in the competitions and informed teams in the competition. They've got class all across the field, and they're playing some really, really good football. What about the North Melbourne Sydney game? Did you see? Did you see it, or were you on your way to the game?
No, I saw it. I came back. I was watching Kaiser play at Morningside, and then I came back to the house before I then got ready to go to the Gabba, and I flicked on the footy because I was watching a bit of the Adelaide Dogs game, your game, and then I was like, geez, that North Melbourne Sydney game's close. So I flicked it on, and for the last 5 minutes, I was like, North Melbourne are going to win. I actually thought they were going to win. And then it got down into their forward pocket, like Sydney's forward pocket, and I was like, hang on, what's the umpire doing? He's just completely stopped. And he's like listening to his ear. I was like, what is he doing? And everyone else is standing around on the ground like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, interchange infringement. And I was just like, no way.
No.
Like that never happens.
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, I couldn't believe it when I seen it. You do not see it. It's one of those things where it can completely ruin a season. And obviously North had an enormous week with Alistair Clarkson not, obviously stepping down for mental health, and we both wish him all the very best. He's another. Speaking of champion coaches, he's one of the very greats.
Absolutely.
But for them to have the week that they have, and then come up against a team who played in the grand final last year, to have that taken away from him, it's just, devastating for them. I mean, you give credit to Sydney; they won the game, and obviously don't discredit them. But it's devastating for the week that they had, but for a young group like North who, are trying to build as much momentum as they can. Could you imagine being in their shoes and how actually flat you'd be?
Oh, mate, it'd be, very deflating. As you touched on, it's a tough one to swallow because it's such a rare thing that happens. Like, it just never happens, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I saw a lot of things around it because they were saying that they not only did one, but they did two extra interchanges. So how does that? I think they try to just put him back on because he wasn't meant to come off. But I think it was Liam Shields. Liam Shields was cramping.
Well, how does I don't get how, where does the stuff up happen? Because every team has the interchange steward, and there's obviously a person on the headset talking to whoever it may be about the number of interchanges. I just don't see where it would have happened, how they could have got it wrong.
Well, the only thing I can think of is because you do know, like when you run off and there's no more interchanges, you normally get let known as players. It's like, righto, boys, we're done for the night. Like, that's it. Like, we're just sitting on the bench. But Shields probably just ran off thinking, I'm cramping. I've just got to get off the ground here because it's like the dying moments of the game. Probably not thinking himself that potentially the interchange was done. So, but then you think they'd just be like, no, stay there, don't come off. Yeah. But there was none of it. So crazy scenes at Marvel Stadium.
Yeah, very, very disappointing for North Melbourne. I feel like it's one of those wins for Sydney where it could really kickstart something, and they're more than capable of having a string of really good performances and winning games of footy. There's no coincidence they made the granny last year and was one of the two best teams all year. So definitely one of it could be a win that kickstarts them.
Do you think the penalty for the interchange infringement is harsh?
Absolutely. Yep. Now watching that, absolutely. It shouldn't be. It should, because, tell you why, because that direct interchange had no impact on the game. So, there's no impact on the result of the game in terms of someone coming on and off in that direct instance. So, I definitely think it's too harsh. Absolutely.
Imagine that happening in a grand final.
See, I feel like it would be like, oh, I didn't see that kind of thing. Oh, no, they were on 74 or whatever it may have been, because can you imagine if that was a grand final? I mean, there'd be, oh my gosh, there would be a riot, or there'd be the opposition fans that lost. There'd be, it'd just be mayhem, because I definitely feel like it's too much of a punishment.
Do you think that the punishment should just be, or not even a punishment, it should just be, righto, he's gone on for this bloke, get him off, and the other guy has to go back on? Like, do you reckon that's what has to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I understand it being I can understand it being a free kick, and we all know. Maybe the free kick has to be where the ball is. Like, I mean, it's a bit hard to just rotate them back over. Yeah, I get that, but that's just unlucky that the stoppage was there. If the ball was in the opposition back pocket, we wouldn't be sitting there saying, "Oh, the ball would be in the pocket." It'd be. So I don't know. I just feel like, if say it's similar to, say you get the ball right, half back, you're running and you kick it, and someone comes and cleans you up. Usually, what happens is the free kick goes where the ball is. Why can't it be the same with interchange? Whatever, got it wrong. The ball's on the wing. All right, the ball just goes to the closest guy on the wing. I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like it's a bit harsh for it to be on the goal line. I mean, it's a goal. It's not. No one's going to miss on the goal line. So I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it's definitely one that probably needs to be looked at. But what do we know? We don't know anything, mate.
Something that caught my eye on the weekend though was. It was actually Friday night. We were talking about the Melbourne Port game. Did you see a couple of the free kicks that were paid for blocking the opposition ruckman from getting? I was genuinely I was confused. Like, the next night, I went to block the ruckman, the big Witsy from the Gold Coast, and I was like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to do this.
Well, there was one where I think Port kicked the goal and Maxi Gorn was running to the bench. and it might have been Powell Pepper who was blocking him, and they gave a free kick at the centre bounce to the Melbourne side, and he wasn't even literally, he was just stepping in his way to just impede his run. It wasn't like he was punching him or, hitting him illegally. It was just to block him. I mean, it is annoying, but it's not worthy of a free kick, I don't think.
No, but one of them, I swear, resulted in a goal as well. Like Maxi Gorm was trying to get down to the goal square, and there was a couple of guys trying to block him, and then he got a free set shot, and it was a goal. Or it was 50 metres or something. And I'm like...
Well, it's considered what they call, we could hear them on the umpire mic, they say you're impeding his run, so it's a free kick. But like, what happens if I handball the ball to you and someone's trying to tackle you and I come across and block him? Am I impeding his run? Well, I am, technically, so it kind of defeats, like, it's not the answer. So
it's like if someone's getting tagged. Same thing.
It's a total difference between, say Powell Pepper was belting him or punching him or hitting him or, shoving the elbow into him off the ball, which is 100 metres away. It's different to just standing in front of him and just blocking him. So, I feel like that was a little bit odd on the Friday, because I've seen, one of your ex-teammates and one of my teammates, Libba, he does it all the time. He does it as well as anybody, where he tries to, tries to get our own ruckman free from the opposition ruckman just by blocking him.
I feel like it's taught. I feel like, if you're trying to get on top of the other ruckman or whoever it might be, an opposition player from the other team, then it's like, righto, boys, let's just make it a hard day for him. Let's check his run all the time, make it a really hard day for him, and help our ruckman out or help our players out by doing so. That's just a team tactic. That's not a way of giving away a free kick, surely.
No, I don't think so. Maybe hopefully there's hopefully there's some AFL hierarchy having a listen to our potty and and maybe considering a couple of things.
Yeah, it's just something that I wanted to ask you about, because I remember seeing it and thinking, geez, what's going on there?
Yeah, I agree. What about there's nothing else you want to mention before getting into your game?
Nah, not really. Nah, all good, mate. All good.
Well, you were going to mention players that impressed you. I obviously wanted you to touch on now your game this week against the Crows. I know it's over there, and is it your only Sunday game for the year? Because it's on Sunday, isn't it?
It is. It's actually our only Sunday. I don't reckon I've ever played just one Sunday game for the year. So looking forward to it, mate. Down in Adelaide, it'll be good.
That's when you know you're flying, because they don't schedule it on a Sunday. Although Collingwood have played a lot of Sunday games and they're the best team in the comp, so it's quite funny. But what about you obviously watched our game against the Crows? What's your your first initial feelings towards obviously Adelaide, and who are players that have impressed you? Who do you what do you guys need to do to stop them? Obviously, it's going to be a hostile crowd against a really good side in Adelaide, and we've seen prior to our game they got a hold of St Kilda in their home ground, so it's going to be a really good contest to watch.
Yeah, for sure. This is a massive game for us. I feel like if we can take the Crows scalp down at Adelaide Oval, it's going to be a very big thing for us moving into, obviously we get out of mid-season bye after that. So it's a huge game, massive build-up and down in South Australia too. So looking forward to obviously channeling the energy of the Crows supporters down there, mate, and hopefully we've got a few Lion supporters too. I know Tipper and a few of her teammates might come along, so extra support is always good. But I think, we looked at them a little bit today, and they're very good around the contest, and their stuff away from the ball's been nice, and I feel like their ball movement is something that they really like to focus on, and they're really clean at doing that. And I feel like their key forwards in Tex, who didn't play against you boys, but I feel like he's a very big focal point for him. So we're going to have to try and, if he comes back into the side, we're going to have to try and negate him in a way. Obviously, losing Paney too for us doesn't help us, but we've got some key backs in the stocks that are ready to come in. So looking forward to the challenge and getting down there and hopefully playing our best footy, because I feel like we've got on a bit of a roll now and chalking up a few wins, and the confidence is definitely there that our best footy can take it up to anyone. So looking forward to the challenge and getting down there, mate.
No, I agree. It's going to be an enormous challenge for you guys. There's some great matchups all across the field. I definitely believe I say probably most weeks, but it's going to be an intriguing matchup inside. I last week spoke about how highly I regard Jordan Dawson in particular, who's having an incredible season, and Rory Laird through there. as well. Brodie Smith off halfback. What about yourself? How do you feel like you will, I guess, approach their mids? Because I feel like, we seen on the weekend against us that they well and truly matched it up against us and were able to beat us around the ball. Will it be, trying to put as much pressure on their, disposal away from the clearance, or, whatever? Give us a bit of an insight on what you reckon the approach will be without getting in trouble by the coaches by giving away game plan stuff.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good question. I feel like they really like to get the ball on the outside. So they win it at the source, but if they don't win it, then they're surrounding you with a number of players. So then hopefully you cough it up to them for them to go forward. So yeah, there's going to be elements to the game where the contest is obviously really important, but the outside play is going to be probably even more important. I feel outside and around the stoppage, we always talk about inside outside balance and things like that. It's going to be important with the Crows because once they get on the outside, like I touched on, they use the footy really, really well, and then their key forwards can hit up at the ball. So they've got some great ball users in there in Dawson, and like you touched on, and Rory Laird's having a really good year as well. So there's some players that go through that midfield that can really use the footy dangerously, and we're going to be on top of that for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I cannot wait to watch it. I love being able to watch the last. I always enjoy watching the last game of the round because it's late on a Sunday and you got to prepare for training the next day. So my eyes will be glued onto it. And obviously you'll be playing, and obviously I'm your number one supporter, mate. What about as you just touched on mid-season buy plans? Because you guys are obviously having a break after this, which is crazy because we don't actually have a buy for another, I think, 4 games. So
yeah,
you guys
I saw this. I was like, it's like 4 weeks of buys.
Yep.
And
yeah.
unfortunately, we don't match up, mate, so we can't really hang out. Although I will come back to Melbourne and probably see you around the traps.
Well, is that answering your question? My question was going to be, what are you actually doing? What's your plans? I know Tipper's season will be going, so you can't really go anywhere with Tips. So what are you planning to do?
Yeah. So I'll plan to come home. I'll go see the parents on the farm firstly. I think the old man's getting a bit of surgery next week on his back, so might have to help him out and get him back to the farm. He probably won't like that I've said that, but too bad, Panda.
He will hate that because he's going to be seen as a weak. Oh, poor Panda. Hey, that was Josh, not me, mate. You know I love you.
Yeah, so I'll head back home, look after him and see Mum and spend some time with the family and then come back because it's actually good because Tipper's playing in Melbourne on Saturday night, so I'll be able to watch her game and spend some time with her as well. So nice to be able to go back to the farm and back home where I grew up, mate, and you know what it's like down there. It'd be nice to see a few people and spend some time out there in the open and fresh air because it's a beautiful part of the world down in Yarra, mate. You know that.
It is a beautiful place. I've really was an eye opener for me the first time I went down there. It was but it is good fun. As you said, you get away from the hustle and bustle of the world, and a couple of spots that have no reception, and hang out with all the animals. So it's nice. And it's also good because you said you'll be in Melbourne, and we've got a game on that Saturday against Geelong. So hopefully you can I can sneak you down and you come into the change room even if you want.
Oh, geez. I don't know about that. I'll probably get I don't know if I'd be able to attend a Doggies game, mate, the way they booed me in round 3. But, yeah, I'll be definitely keen to catch up with yourself and a few others. It'd be good.
Oh, that's good. I'm looking forward to it. Well, hopefully you can do it off the back of a win and you can go into the bye sitting nice and comfortable on the ladder. But it should be a good game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, mate. Hopefully, as I touched on, it's a great challenge for us and we're going to build it up like it's our last game for the year. So looking forward to that. But talk about yourself, mate. Obviously, you're not sure if you're coming back yet, but how do you see the Suns game playing out? Obviously, like I said, they've been really good across the year and really took it up to us last week. So I'm intrigued to see how this battle pans out.
Yeah, well, it's obviously going to be quite different for us in the considering the past games we've played in the last month have been pretty cold and not overly humid, and we've had a couple of wet games, so we're obviously anticipating for it to be slippery and kind of playing wet weather footy. So we've been used to that a little bit, but no, it's going to be a really good contest, and hopefully, obviously, as we just said, I'll be a part of it. I feel like it'll be, a really good battle through the midfield once again. They're a very good contested ball side team. They've got some dangerous players in their forward line who, can win goals off their own boot. And, I feel like they've built, a lot of good footy over the past month. I know they didn't win last week against you guys, but they were right into the game, right up till obviously the last quarter. And, you boys are right up there as one of the best teams in the competition. So, we're fully anticipating for the Heat to be on from the get-go. They play, I think, up in Darwin quite a bit. Most years they play up there, I believe. So, they're probably used to a bit of the heat. Obviously, being on the Gold Coast, it's beautiful all year round. It's nothing like Melbourne. So, it's going to be an interesting battle for us. One that, we just got to keep, playing the way that we want to play, bringing in the contested side game that we bring, and the defensive wants and attitude that we've brought, all year, really. I think that's one thing that we can definitely be proud about, that regardless of win or loss, we've been able to defend really well, probably other than the first two games. And that's something that has been extremely pleasing. So hopefully we can just keep bringing that same mindset, and it can be a nice, strong performance for us once again, and have another win, and just keep rolling from there. And as you said, as we've touched on, I think this is the time when, we want to be a team that can start separating ourselves from, other sides, and really establishing ourselves as a bona fide, really good side in the competition, and one that can win most weeks. So really looking forward to the game. I whether I'm playing, I'll be loving it, or if I'm watching, I'll be loving it. But it's something that I'll definitely be looking forward to.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your opposition analysis. Do you do much of that yourself, and individually and collectively? Like, what days do you look at, say, Gold Coast, for example, this week, and then individually, do you check out tape of potentially who you might line up on, or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot over time for me. I've just over there in the cupboard, I've showed you before the book that I used to write, a full A4 page of spreadsheet of the opposition, and, spend countless of hours on, opposition, and write all the midfield players down and their strengths and weaknesses. And no doubt there's probably a little bit of you in there from all those years ago. But I kind of just go with how, obviously Collingwood do it different to the Bulldogs, and the Giants did it obviously different to Collingwood, and kind of just go with how the team goes about it. And, we like to obviously review a little bit later, or preview a little bit later in the week. We're at Collingwood. When I was there, we previewed earlier in the week. So, I feel like there's definitely pros for both ways. And, I like the fact that we review our games, quite a bit over the first few days of the week, and then really hone in on the opposition the last couple of days. So, tomorrow is our main session before the boys and all of us head away to Darwin on Thursday. We're going up early to, acclimatise ourselves and get used to the heat prior to the Saturday game. So we'll have a main session tomorrow, and, probably have a little bit of a look on, what their ball movement may be like, or whatever it may be at training. We'll probably, whether it's bring have the VFL guys train as Gold Coast, and we match up against that and try and stop that. I think most teams do that, but it's something that I feel like puts us in good stead going into the weekend's game. And then individually, I obviously like to know who I'm coming up against, but our midfield and obviously backs and forwards do it really well, where our coaches, obviously, they clip up a lot of stuff where, this is their centre bounce stuff. This is their, ball up stuff. This is the way they kick the ball in, and how they set up, and how they want to defend our kick-ins and whatnot. So, the way that we've got it now, we're pretty lucky to just be able to go onto the server and watch that. So, to answer your question, I suppose, the last couple of days, we tend to focus more on the last couple of days of the week prior to the game. We tend to focus a lot more on, what we need to do to stop this upcoming opposition, and obviously Gold Coast being this one, and then how we can do that and exploit that. So, that seems to be what a week typically looks like for us, and I definitely feel like it works well and truly. But obviously, each footy club's totally different. So, we'll spend quite a bit of time tomorrow on the Suns.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think everyone can do it differently. I've obviously been used to the way that you still do it now is later in the week, but up here we tend to do it early in the week. So it's reviewing our game really quickly, and then obviously moving on to the to the next game, so then you can sort of train it throughout the week. So I see the best of both sides, to be honest. But it is a really important thing, I think, when you're looking at who you're coming up against, to know about the opposition and know about opposition players you might be facing is an important one to look at.
Yeah, I feel like it's another, like, you got to understand, and I know there's obviously a lot of keen young footballers who listen to our potty because we get the feedback all the time. Each person is different. Like, it doesn't have to be the same thing for everyone. And I've always been someone who, I don't really like watching vision. I don't enjoy watching vision of a player. I know, unless I absolutely they're first year and I don't know anything about him, I'll probably watch vision. But say I'm coming up against you, I don't need to watch vision of you. I know your strengths, I know your weaknesses. Well, I believe I do, and I know what I'll need to do to try and stop that. And I feel like vice versa for someone like you've played with. But each person's different, and even reviewing games. I mean, I review better by just having a conversation with my coach or my line coach and just talking to them about instances and moments, because I'm experienced enough and old enough to know what I need to work on, what I didn't do particularly well in the game, what I did do well. So I don't necessarily need to go out of my way to watch hours and hours of it. And I feel like each individual is different, because I know players in the team that love watching vision. Cody Waitman loves watching vision, and I see it all the time. And there's a reason why he plays so well, quite often, is because he knows what his defender wants to do to him and how he wants to move and whatnot. And yeah, it's a credit to Cody because he does that extremely well. So each individual is different.
Yeah, you've got to definitely find what's right for you, and that's the beauty of trying different things out along the journey. But we'll move on, mate. We haven't talked about this segment for quite some time. The netball. I know. Just a shout out to Letha Kirkby for the feedback on the socials. We see it and we respond to it. But thank you for obviously hitting us up about it. How's Kimmy going, mate? It's been a tough year so far, but I feel like they're still showing some signs of some good netball. It's just probably not coming together across the four quarters. How do you see the Firebirds?
Well, firstly, it's obviously it's pretty disappointing that we lost Macy Gardner a couple of weeks ago, and then we lost Gabby as well in the same game that Tipper hurt her ankle as well. So, that's been disappointing because it's kind of, I reckon, hurt our cohesion a little bit, and it's clearly evident by watching. Kimmy kind of moves around in her role and players come in and out. So, yes, that's great. Invaluable experience for the players coming through center and wing attack, wing defense, wherever the positional change may be. You can tell that it, hurts them when they play, when the cohesion's not there. And this is coming from someone who knows, very little about netball. This is just me observing, and obviously having conversations with Kimmy. So, it's been, frustrating because, as you know, you probably ride the waves with Tipper as she does with you, and I do the same with Kimmy. And the game on the weekend, there was a record broken, but not for the good reason for us. Fever were able to put on, I think, 97 points or whatever it was, and beat us by like 32 or something and break the record, which is, it was hard to watch because you could see the girls are trying so hard, but when the Fever are in that, the way that they're playing, and I think Glasgow had Sasha Glasgow, I think is her first name. She, I think, shot 14 two-pointers, broke a record or something, and she just wasn't missing. It was just incredible, and it was really cool to watch because, you want to see good sport and good netball. So, and then to go along with Fowler up there, and who's, the best goal shooter in the world, how can you stop that when, when all the momentum's going their way? So, in terms of that, it's been pretty disappointing. I feel like the last, prior to that, they'd played some really good netball, and Kim was very confident, and she's always confident week in, week out. She's such a proud and passionate team person. There's obviously, no surprise that she's the captain, but she wears her heart on her sleeve, and, she wants the girls to perform high and well at a good level most weeks or every week. And it's just been, it was a disappointing performance on the weekend, but the beauty is there's 4 more games to go. There's still great opportunity to perform, and hopefully Macy can come back and Gabby can come back and really help us. Macy, I felt like was playing incredibly well prior to her going out. She was really, growing in that position at center, and you could clearly see her strengths. And She reminds me a lot of the way Kimmy was playing when Kimmy was coming through the ranks, and obviously Kimmy ended up being a superstar, and Macy want her to obviously be a superstar, and she will, no doubt. So, yeah, hopefully these next, I think there's got 4 games left. Hopefully they can be, some good games and some wins there. There's my short little analysis on the Firebirds. What about you, mate? What about the Thunderbirds? Polar opposites, although they didn't win on the weekend, but polar opposites.
Yeah, well, the weekend was a little bit disappointing for him. You touched on Tipper doing an ankle a couple of weeks ago against the Firebirds, Kimmy and Lara. We didn't talk about Lara, but obviously Lara's playing it up there with Kimmy as well, or up here, I should say. I'm not in Melbourne. I keep pinching myself that I'm in Queensland, to be honest. But yeah, they had a really good year to date. The weekend was probably a little bit disappointing for them, losing to the Vixens, I think, by 20 odd. I was actually shocked to see that score when I come off the field and check the score. So, yeah, Tips looking forward to hopefully getting back this week against the Fever at home. But yeah, I feel like they've been pretty happy as a netball club. They haven't made finals for a few years, so hopefully the next couple of weeks is telling, and they can play some good netball and get a couple of wins, because then it shores up that finals position. But they were on top of the ladder last week. I think now they dropped down to second or third. So yeah, it's looking promising for them. I feel like their best netball's definitely capable of taking it up to anyone, and in that top 4 especially. So looking forward to seeing how they go this weekend against the Fever. But then obviously moving forward, there's only 4 or 5 weeks to go. So getting towards the pointy end, mate, which will be pretty exciting for the Thunderbirds. Obviously might be a little bit different for Kimmy and Lara with the way that their team's going. But yeah, really looking forward to the next few weeks and seeing how it all plays out, because it's an exciting time of year for the netball community. I do want to talk about the netball, though, because the Collingwood Football Club have said that they want to get rid of their team potentially, or they're doing a review. Where else will there be a team? Because there's got to have to be another team somewhere else.
Yeah, there has to be. I think there's agreement with the actual TV rights where there has to be 8 teams. So I don't know. I've seen a Tasmania suggestion. I mean, Tassie seems to be winning at the moment in everything. So, and I obviously know a couple of people from Tassie, obviously teammates and people that I know, and those people speak really highly of netball down in Tasmania. For it to be a standalone team as well, would be incredible for him. So I don't know. I think probably, where else could a team be?
I think Geelong. I think Geelong are going to get a team, because I feel like Geelong is one of those towns. It's one of those towns that will really get behind their players. Like if they have a team or netball team, basketball team, they're just going to always go to their games. So to be a bit of a fortress for them, potentially. Yeah,
definitely. I that wouldn't surprise me at all. I just think if Collingwood do, if they do go under, and obviously it'd be extremely unfortunate, because there was so much promise early days, and hopefully they can figure it out. But the player pool that will come from Collingwood, I mean, there's some absolute stars at Collingwood. I mean, Kelsey Brown's a gun. Jiva Mentors are still going as well as ever, and there'd be some players that would be up for grabs for some teams who would need them, and obviously the Firebirds are obviously looking to improve. So I wouldn't say no to a couple of players going up to the Firebirds.
Yeah, they've got some great players, the Pies. But it's just going to be interesting, because I feel like the way, we're close to the netball with our partners being involved, and obviously my sister as well, Lara. But I just feel like it's at a point now where, I don't know, I just wish that they should get more for what they do. Like it should be a full-time thing. They train as much as us, really. And even their pay stuff, like they should be earning way more than what they're currently on. And I feel like the league itself is, whether they're doing, I don't know, what's the best interest for the girls and what's the best interest for the game, because this netball is one of the highest number of female.
It is. It's the number one
in the world, mate. It's the number one.
Yeah, I know. It's in Australia, it's the number one participated sport in Australia. So, no, I agree with that, because there's such a discrepancy between the highest paid player in the netball as well and the lowest paid player from reports. I mean, don't know obviously the detail, but I agree with that, because these, you see Tipper and obviously Lara, and I see Lara as well, and Tipper, and Kimmy and how much effort they put in to their bodies first and foremost. But these ladies, they're finely tuned athletes. They're some of the best that you'll see in the world, and a lot of them have to have a second job because they can't make a substantial amount of living for what they're getting paid. So no, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you, and it surprised me because, as you said, it's the number one participated sport in the world.
Yeah. So it blows my mind that they can't, or they don't get more for what they do, and their preseason went for as long as ours, if not longer. So things like that, you're like, hopefully Netball Australia can sort something out, and we can all get behind the game because it's an incredible game. As you touched on, the girls are in fine condition, and the way they play on the court is just next level. So to all the netball fans out there that listen to the potty, and if you don't support netball, maybe have a look at it because it's pretty impressive stuff.
Well, we'll move on from netball to always our last segment and our favourite, the NBA Finals. I mean, I don't know what we're going to talk about when the NBA is done. Maybe the NFL fantasy draft, as I'm trying to sneak it in every week. But we'll start with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy freaking Butler, as Tommy likes to put it. He's just on a whole new level, mate.
Oh, I love his character. His character is just next level. It's so good. He gets everyone up. I feel like everyone's now loving Jimmy Butler because he's just bringing this different sort of persona to the NBA game. Like it's crazy.
He's doing the old, what is it? When you talk the talk, you walk the walk. He's doing that. I mean, he's talking the talk, and did you see that celebration, that timeout celebration he did to Al Horford? Because Al Horford did it in the first game, and he literally did it while staring at him on one knee. And it's just like, oh my gosh, you actually can't even do that, down here in the AFL. But,
unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. I tell you what, Grant Williams will never, ever poke the bear again. Since he did that, it was game over.
No, I actually think he's still going to try. Yeah, I mean, that's just he plays his best ball when he's on edge, but clearly Jimmy Butler does too. So you probably got to balance it out. But it's over. Like, it's not. No team has ever come back from 3-0 down. There's been 3 teams in the history out of whether it's 180 teams, whatever it is, that have been 3-0 down in the history. Only, I think, 3 teams have actually gotten to a game 7, but it ended up losing. So it's never been done before. And maybe I shouldn't say it because the opposite seems to happen, but I just don't. Boston can't beat them. Not at all. I mean, they're just too good. They're too good. Jason Tatum, after he came out and said he's the best player in the world because of that last quarter, remember when he said humbly, I'm the best in the world, or one of the best in the world? Yeah, he's kind of that shot himself in the foot because he hasn't hit many field goals in the last quarter, which I know would no doubt would be hurting him. But yeah, Jimmy Butler's just on a whole new level at the moment.
So you're saying the Celtics can't do anything to win?
Oh, they might be able to win one game, but the next game's in Miami again. And we've seen how they played in Miami 2 days ago, losing by 20, 25. I mean, what are they going to do that's different?
No. I'm just saying because we're obviously recording this prior to the game 4. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think the Celtics can get anywhere near them because they're obviously in Miami and Jimmy, but they're all playing great team basketball, which I think is, we'll touch on Denver in a second, but Denver is showing that too. So it's just great to see. And I reckon since game 5, I think it was game 5 where Philly beat the Celtics in that series, and the Celtics just look done. They just look done. And I was like, oh, they're done. They're no chance this year. Like, I watched that game and I was like, nah, they're just not firing on all cylinders like some of the other teams. And I feel like since then, they got over the line, obviously, against the 76ers. But since the Miami series has kicked off, they've just looked completely out of it.
Yeah, I agree. It just seems like they don't really have the depth. You look at outside of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, there's not really anyone playing well. Where Miami obviously have Jimmy Butler, but they've got Bam Adebayo, who, I'll say it again, he's one of the most underrated players of all time. He's a gun. They've got, Strus, who's playing, I read something the other day that they've got like 7 undrafted players. There's Max Struth, there's Gabe Vincent, there's Caleb or is it Caleb Martin? It's either Caleb or Cody because there's twins, but it's Caleb Martin. Duncan Robinson, who's about to break the record for most three-pointers by a Miami Heat player in playoff history. Tyler Herro's still not playing. He's coming back. Victor Oladipo's obviously out as well, who's been a great role player the last few years. So, it's funny because we would have used that as an excuse for them not winning at the start of the playoffs. Oh, they don't have the experience. Oh, undrafted players, they're not. They don't have what it takes as a reason why they're undrafted. Well, whoever was saying that, and I probably was one of them, that's just stupid because they've clearly shown the talent that they have. And, I think back to when I said on this potty and obviously that survey that the 100 anonymous players got surveyed and said, who's the most overrated player in the NBA? Trae Young was number one, and then Pascal Siakam, and then number three was Jimmy Butler. And I took huge offense to it because I was like, why? Because he doesn't go out and try and, stuff the stat sheet and have triple doubles and whatnot in the regular season. I mean, Joel Embiid did that, and then they got bowed out in the second round and was the biggest drop off in points per game. So they're just unbelievable. I mean, Nuggets will be the favorite. It's funny because the series isn't over yet, but we're talking about the finals anyway. Nuggets will be the favorite, but it just wouldn't surprise me if Miami end up winning.
Yeah, I can't see the Nuggets losing at all. I just feel like when the Nuggets are up and about, they are too hard to beat, man. No one will beat them. But if they can't get their game going and Miami can play the way they want to play, then, yeah, it might be a good series. But, hey, I saw this thing. I don't know if you've seen it too, about Jimmy Butler. But have you seen that talk around going around about potentially MJ being a relation to Jimmy Butler? Have you seen that? So Jimmy Butler's dad, like he'd never met his dad, so he got abandoned as a child. I've read this thing. It was like it was blowing my mind. And apparently MJ had a son that he never really met.
Oh wow!
Unless this is all false. I've read this and I was like, it blew my mind, mate. I was like, wow. So like all these characteristics and stuff are like MJ. So they're all saying like there could be like
I can see the similarities.
Yeah. So like imagine if that was the case.
Oh mate, it would not surprise me. He's definitely, they say, built from a different cloth. He's definitely one of those guys. It still surprises me that it just didn't work at Philly and didn't work at Minnesota with Jimmy Butler because he's the way that he is now. He's the player that you want on your team. But we obviously touched on the Denver Nuggets and it being a Miami Heat series. I mean, it'd be rude for us not to applaud LeBron James. Considering I read a report today that he, played through an injury that bad, he needed surgery on it. Today was obviously, on our time now, obviously gets released tomorrow episode, but today they lost game 4, got swept by the Nuggets, but LeBron played, I think, every minute. Had a 40-point game, still moving as well as ever. I mean, and then, there's talk today that he might consider retiring, which I don't think will happen because Bronny is obviously going to college next year, and I feel like he'll have maybe hopefully 1 year and then get drafted. So I don't think LeBron's going to retire, but I feel like there's a lot to happen in this offseason, whether, he moves or there's talk about Kyrie Irving going to the Lakers next season. But, you spoke about how good the Nuggets were, but we got to always appreciate LeBron James.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe just had 12 months off, to be honest. I feel like he might just, he might have some time off and then come back with Bronny and sign somewhere and then Bronny gets drafted, or wait for Bronny to get drafted to play with him. But he's just a freak, LeBron. Just gets it done.
Well, yeah, you could see just how, watching today, even the last couple of games, you could kind of see how hard it was for him because outside of LeBron on that roster, there was no go-to scorer. I mean, Austin Reeves, yes, but he's not really proven. He hasn't really done it before at a high level. And all respect to him, he played well, but AD just wasn't scoring. He was inconsistent. D'Angelo Russell, I don't know what happened there. He had one good game in the whole series. Where you flip to the Nuggets and, again, talk about underrated players. Jamal Murray, this guy is a straight-out baller. I mean, he is perfectly complements Nikola Jokic. I mean, you go into detail about, how they play, and they do the high screen pick and roll, and Jamal Murray ends up getting a matchup on whoever it is, and he just always scores. I mean, he's just playing on a whole new level at the moment. And, people speak about the bubble, and when, all those years ago, Jamal Murray was breaking out and becoming this superstar. I think he's even better than what he was then.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. He's flying at the moment, and no question as to why Denver challenging for the title.
I think I definitely think in terms of duos, they're the best duo I've seen in a long time. I mean, and there's, top of my head, I'm thinking, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard didn't really accomplish anything. KD's been with heaps, James Harden, Kyrie, Devin Booker haven't really accomplished anything. LeBron and AD, great duo. 2020, they were unbelievable, but they had a great roster. I feel like, the importance of Murray and, definitely Jokic, because we know how good he is, but take them away from their side, then it completely changes for him. Definitely one of the best duos I've seen in a long time. And it's quite funny the amount of disrespect the media give the Denver Nuggets, and they have given him all year.
Yeah, and they're one of the teams that are just never talked about, really.
I think it's because they've essentially had the same roster for 2 to 3 years. And, they seem to, finish top of the conference and then bow out in the conference final, whatever it may be. So I feel like everyone was just kind of expecting that. But, yeah, we've just touched on how good they've been.
All right, so you're saying Denver, Miami finals?
Well, come on, mate. I think 99% of the world, you must be silly if you think Boston are going to beat them. Oh, I just know it'll probably happen now that I've said it, because that's just the way I'm going with predicting things at the moment. But, it should be a Boston-Denver series. And this time next week.
No, not Boston-Denver. Not Boston-Denver.
Sorry, Miami-Denver. This time next week, it's a week. Should be maybe 2 games in. I'm going to say, hopefully it's 1-1. That'd be nice. It'd be nice, because before we move on from these teams and talk about the draft, it's been a terrible conference finals. Been shocking from a fan point of view.
Yeah, from a fan point of view. But you're seeing 2 quality teams go to work, so I don't mind that fact.
Yeah, I agree with you. But deep down, I know you're hoping that, I know you're wishing that there was 5, maybe game 6 in it at least, not 2 sweeps. You rarely see that.
Yeah.
But did you watch see the draft lottery?
Yeah, I did. And don't ask me to say his last name, because, mate, there's no way I can say that.
Victor Wembanyama. Wembanyama. He's the most talked about prospect I reckon I've ever seen. Like, LeBron obviously comes to mind, but yeah, people are saying this guy's like a generational player. Like, will go down as one of the greatest of all time. So, good luck to him. When he does get drafted by the Spurs, because it's funny when the lottery went down. Like, he's that good. He knows he's going pick 1. So he's already talking about, moving to San Antonio and seeing all, David Robinson and Tim Duncan and Tony Parker, all these ex-champions, Manu Ginobili, being able to be mentored by him, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was funny. I saw a thing prior. I think Houston maybe got called out before the Spurs for pick 1 and pick 4. And he was like, because he didn't want to go to Houston or something.
I'll tell you who I do feel sorry for in terms of the draft. Because we all know how good Victor Wembanyama, I'm going to say it again, how good he's going to be. He's, from looking at him, he's going to be a generational player. I'm not sure how much you followed some of the flailing teams this year who were just clearly playing for the draft, but one of my great mates and one of your good mates, Casey, he's a mad Detroit Pistons fan, and they have been a really sorry organisation for a long time, and they literally played for pick 1, worst record in the NBA, right? Had 17 wins and 67 losses, whatever it equals to 82, and best chances to get pick 1 came away with pick 5. I just feel sorry for him. Casey was filthy. You feel sorry for it. Before we move on from NBA and wrap it up, because I feel like we're going for an hour and a half here, but what do you think of the lottery? Do you like the lottery, or do you reckon the team that comes last should get pick 1?
Nah, team that comes last gets pick 1 for mine.
So do I. Oh, so do I. Detroit Pistons and all those diehard fans out there, because they're a good organisation. Feel sorry for you because you've played for Victor Wembanyama and you've got pick 5. But
So
but
stiff.
one more thing before we move on from the NBA and finish up. Carmelo Anthony retired today, who one of the greatest scorers of all time. I think he's a top 15 scorer in terms of pure points. He's one of the, I think he was the last player drafted from the 2003 Super Draft with LeBron, D Wade, Darko Milicic, for all those people out there that know Darko Milicic, who went pick 2. There's a Chris Bosh, and then obviously Melo was in it. He retired today, which is a shame because I wanted him to jump onto a team and try and win a ring. But yeah, he's someone that I'll remember growing up because falling in love with the game of basketball. He was well and truly, in the thick of it as one of the superstars of the competition. So he's retired today. So what a champion of the NBA, and well done on a Hall of Fame career, Carmelo.
Well done, Melo. And anything else, mate, before we move on?
It's been a
give us a prediction.
Show.
Give us a prediction for the final. Or finals.
Oh, mate, you don't want to hear mine because it'll be wrong. Denver will play Miami, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm just riding the coattails of Jimmy Butler and Miami Heat and the momentum they've got. And I reckon they'll get swept 4-0. Nah, I reckon Miami will win. I reckon it'll be... I'm going Miami, and I'm just hoping for a 7. So they'll win Game 7 in Denver because it'll be in Denver.
Oh.
So, yeah, I'm going to say Miami Heat. What do you reckon?
Denver 4-1.
Ooh, what a shame that'll be. I just want it to be a big series. But no, it'd be good to talk about next week.
Yeah, looking forward to it, mate. Before we move on, just got another thing for our fans out there. Obviously, we talked about it last week, but 1,000 5-star ratings on Spotify and Apple. And Adzi and I are going to organise a huge signed jersey giveaway. So make sure you head to Spotify and Apple, type in Ausmerican Aces, rate our show, ideally 5-star, as we touched on. And when we see it's at 1,000, we're going to launch our next giveaway. So get around your friends or people you might know that want to listen to the podcast or listen to the podcast already and get us to that 1,000 mark. I think we're currently on 500, so we're about halfway. So looking forward to getting that done. And yeah, thanks to all our fans for supporting us. Obviously, we talk about it every week, but thank you for all your support.
Yeah, well, we obviously love, the one thing that we love about this is giving away stuff. So we're desperate. Please just like and rate our show. And as Dunks has said, I can't see why we wouldn't be a 5-star show. We love everyone, and we're hoping everyone loves listening to us talk rubbish, especially when we think we know, or when I know the NBA, and Josh is just, we all want to see him kick a goal. So make sure you, keep rating us and get us to that 1,000 mark, because we want to give away a signed jersey for one of our loyal fans out there. So keep listening and rating.
And it may not just be us signing it either. It might be a team jersey. So get on there and rate us highly, and yeah, look forward to it all. But thanks, Adzi. It's been another good episode, mate. It's we're loving it, as you touched on, and I look forward to obviously doing it again next week. But thanks again to all our listeners. As always, subscribe, join us on our journey as we venture through the next sort of half of the season. So thanks again for all your support, and we look forward to seeing you all and talking to you all next week.
Cheers, mate.